reinforcement in a way that how people or how it should be the human behavior, how it was many years ago, like the food was grown, or most of the food, or a big part of the food was grown next to the houses. Right now we are totally, in many countries, people are totally separate of this process, and they just don't know. They just need the money to go to the supermarket. And this was the starting point, that this was complemented with a lot of strategies around the use of animal traction, mainly oxen. That it was a habit in Cuba to use oxen for tillage soils and things like that in the countryside, and to use horse cars to pick up the garbage, and for public transportation. A quarter of 250,000 bicycles were introduced in Havana. So all of this process that some people can call now sustainability, but many people can call it crisis, misery, or the worst. We were not happy. We have to say that. No? I would be lying and say, oh, it's happy to have a bicycle and go for 40 kilometers and do this and that. No? But people learn the hard way. We have to recognize that. And they started to understand how powerful they were becoming when they can grow their own food, when they can make more decisions about the way they live. That's the story in very comprised form that happened. I can make you many funny or sad stories about it. For example, Cuba was very well known because of its doctors. And that happens because in 1959, there were only 6,000 doctors in Cuba for a population of 6 million people. And half of them, 3,000 doctors, between 1959 and 1960, left to the United States. And there was no doctors. And it was one of the things that it was necessary for that the revolution, the people that did the revolution have promised to people that they were improve the health situation in the country. So in a very few years, a Cuban school of medicine was built and done, and a lot of people have it. Right now we have one doctor per 176 inhabitants. And there are more than 30,000 Cuban doctors in Africa, in Central America, in South America, in East Timor, for example, to give you a close place here. And it's not that our concept of solidarity is not to give what we have left. It's to share what we don't have. And maybe we don't have money, but we can share our modest knowledge and experiences. And that's the idea. So these doctors in 1990, they were highly prepared, but there was no medicines to give to people. Because among other things, 90% of the medicine business, the drug business, is controlled by American companies and its subsidiaries. And because by the embargo law, they couldn't sell medicines to Cuba. So in less than 1 year, it was necessary for them to go back to the traditional knowledge and to learn about herbs medicine, about acupuncture, about Eastern medicine. And that gave other idea how it was possible, even with many health problems and also the problems generated for the lack of food of the early years, that it was necessary to be resilient and to look in the available materials and to have the life process for people in the society as local as possible. This was very important for us, no? And we learned many lessons. That, for example, that access to resources is a lot more important than the ownership of the resource itself. That it's a different social arrangement. We learned that political will and flexibility is necessary. We learned that it's important to share, and it's important to reinforce the network with the community. And at the same time, we learned that we were tricked, that we don't need that much energy, we don't need that much luxuries. and it's not necessarily that much money as many governments in the world says that is needed to guarantee universal services as health, education, and access to a dignified life. I have to say that permaculture played a modest role in it, but I feel part of it, and it was very important for me and for other people. The thing is, like, once the conventional system of agriculture was totally dismantled, there was an equal opportunity for alternative forms of agriculture, and all of them were welcome in Cuba. Organic farming, biodynamics, intensive French techniques, and thanks to the solidarity groups from Australia, in 1993, the permaculture was introduced, trying to test its viability in those extreme conditions. It was applied mainly in those early years to an urban context. That's made a little bit different than the permaculture movement around the world. But we are very happy of that, because it was possible for us to share with hundreds of people different possibilities to grow healthy food, and also not to work so hard, because that's one of the components of permaculture that I would love to share with people. That when you do a form of agriculture, like dairy farms, being very honest, for example, it's a system that is working against the nature all the time. You're breaking natural cycles. You're breaking the natural trend of the soil to develop bush, shrubs, trees. This is what it grows in this island, in our islands as well. No? And you need so much energy, so much money, and so much time to keep fighting against the nature, that only when you realize that it's possible to grow things and to produce food all the way, the nature can work for you. The nature can be your ally. You can hire the nature, and she will work for you for free. And I think that that was one of the important elements that the permaculture practice introduced in the urban agriculture, and later in the sustainability models in Cuba, that it was another dimension, not only the cheaper the better, or to produce food, or to eat healthy. It was more about design. It was more to question ourselves about how we live and what's better, what's progress. I'm going to stop here, because I think that I've been taking more than 20 minutes. It's okay? 5 more? Okay, 5 more minutes. It's good. I hope not to bore you. And so this was the idea, totally. It was necessary to rethink that this hard work in order to export goods, it was that important. And if this will open the doors of progress. And in the case of Cuba, we learned that in an awful way. Right now, just to give you an example, the government of Venezuela, led by Chavez, we have an agreement, and we can get all petrol we need, $28 a barrel, when the world price is $105. But we still are living with less than half what we used in the 80s.